Welcome to Historia Popularis, a people's history channel. I am your host, Zillian, and we bring history to life from below. We will cover the basics of historical materialism in this video, a fundamental concept in understanding history and society. The video will be divided into 5 parts: Idealism vs Materialism, Dialectical Materialism, Base and Superstructure, and historical stages, followed by a conclusion. If you are already familiar with the basics, feel free to skip to the next video where we will critiquing and analyzing historical materialism. Idealism vs Materialism, Part 1. There are different ways people understand history. On one side, we have the idealists. Idealists often believe that history is shaped by great ideas and great people. This is often called the great man theory, the idea that significant individuals with powerful ideas drive historical change. While the great man theory has been largely dismissed in academic circles, it remains widespread in popular culture, where stories often highlight the impact of extraordinary kings and generals. This also includes some universal concepts like the notion of human nature. These notions suggest that certain individuals are divinely mandated to rule, as seen in feudalism, or that capitalism thrives because humans are inherently greedy. These ideas is rejected by the materialists, who agree that social and economic systems are not predetermined by human nature or great ideas, but are instead shaped by the material conditions of society. Materialists believe that the economic base of a society shapes its social and political structure, also known as the superstructure. According to this materialist worldview, the superstructure arises from and maintains the economic base. They contend that to understand the main force that shapes our history, one must examine the contradictions and changes that arise from material conditions. This approach is known as materialist dialectics. Or, to provide a concise definition, historical materialism is the application of materialist dialectics to the study of history. Materialist dialectics and historical materialism form the bedrock of Marxist theory, developed by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels. According to their theory, history is driven by class struggle, where oppressed classes fight against ruling classes for economic and political power. Once the development of productive forces reached a stage that conflicted with the relations of production, people became aware of the need for a new mode of production, leading to revolutionary struggle. Marx and Engels argued that this dynamic leads to stages of societal development, each with different modes of production and social relations. They identified several historical stages, including primitive communism, slavery, feudalism, capitalism, and ultimately, socialism and communism. Each stage has a distinct economic base and corresponding superstructure. Transitions between these stages are marked by revolutionary changes, driven by inherent contradictions within the economic base. Historical materialism provides a framework for analyzing history and contemporary social changes, emphasizing the importance of material conditions of society. Before breaking this theory down, let us briefly discuss dialectical materialism. Dialectical Materialism, Part 2. Dialectical materialism is a philosophical framework of Marxist thought. A framework for understanding the material conditions and contradictions that drive change and development, both in nature and in society. It asserts that reality is composed of material substances, and that these substances are in a constant state of motion and contradiction, driving historical and social change. At its core, dialectical materialism posits that everything is interconnected and in a perpetual state of flux due to the inherent contradictions within material reality. This perspective is in contrast with the idealist perspective of Hegelian dialectics. Karl Marx did indeed take inspiration from George William Friedrich Hegel's dialectical method, but he grounded it in material conditions rather than abstract ideas. One key aspect of dialectical materialism is the dialectic, a method that analyzes the dynamic and contradictory nature of reality. It involves 3 stages: thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. The thesis is an existing state, the antithesis opposes it, and the synthesis resolves their tension, forming a new thesis. This continuous process signifies that history and nature are in an unending cycle of transformation driven by these contradictions. In the context of social and historical analysis, which is the topic of this video, dialectical materialism asserts that class struggle and contradictions are the driving forces behind historical changes. This concept centers on the antagonistic relationship between the ruling class and the working class. These fundamental contradictions within this relationship will inevitably lead to societal revolutionary changes. Dialectical materialism also extends to natural sciences, asserting that the same principles of contradiction and change apply to the natural world. In practice, this Marxist philosophy encourages a scientific and analytical approach to understanding societal and natural changes. It promotes the idea that by comprehending the material conditions and the contradictions within them, we can anticipate and influence future development. With the brief overview of dialectical materialism out of the way, let us move on to the theory of historical materialism. Base and superstructure. Part 3. The fundamental economic base of any society consists of its human members. As living beings, we require food, water, shelter, safety, health, clothing, and a sense of community. If a society cannot produce these essential goods, it cannot function. Thus, production forms the foundation of a human society. The method by which a society produces these necessities is referred to as its mode of production. The instrument of production includes tools, machinery, and technology used in the production process. Natural resources are the raw materials provided by nature, such as land, water, minerals, and forests. Together, they constitute the means of production. When combined with human labor power, which is the physical and mental efforts exerted by people in the production process, they form the forces of production. However, these cannot be fully understood without considering the relations of production. This term refers to the social relationships and arrangements between individuals and groups involved in production. This relationship is shaped by who owns the means of production, who controls the labor process, and how the products of labor are distributed. In essence, the relations of production determine how wealth, power, and goods are distributed in a society, shaping social classes and class relations. Both the force of production and the relations of production comprise the mode of production, which is the economic base of a society, laying the foundation for all other aspects of society. From this economic base, the superstructure emerges, encompassing the society's other relationships and ideas not directly relating to production. This includes its cultural, political, legal, and ideological systems. The superstructure serves the material interest of those who control the economic base. It reinforces and legitimizes the existing social and economic order, ensuring the continued dominance of the ruling class. Thus, the superstructure and the economic base are interdependent, with the economic base shaping the superstructure and the superstructure, in turn, maintaining the economic base. This is also where the political struggle for reforms and where the revolutionary struggle takes place. In this context, class struggle becomes a central concept. The inherent conflicts between the ruling class, which controls the means of production, and the working class, which provides labor, drive social changes. These struggles arise from the opposing material interests of these classes and manifest in class war. The type of economy that people find themselves in shapes their class consciousness, both through their direct experience in daily life, where interactions and labor conditions influence their awareness, and through the ideological life that each type of economy produces to maintain itself, justifying the existing class structure and its superstructure. Together, both form and reinforce one's understanding of their class position. As class consciousness develops among the working class, they become more aware of their shared material interests and collective power, leading to more organized and effective resistance. Through class war, societies can undergo significant transformations, potentially leading to revolutionary changes in the mode of production, which reshapes the superstructure. This is not always the majority laboring class that leads the struggle to overthrow the old ruling class, but also other classes. This progress can result in the overthrow of the existing ruling class and the establishment of a new class dictatorship, advancing the society to the next stage. Just for clarification, dictatorship means in this context the imposition of a rule on others who do not consent to it, and not as a form of government in contrast to democracy. Historical stages. Part 4. Historical materialism outlines several states of societal development, each defined by a distinct economic base and corresponding superstructure. As I will address these societal stages in my next video, I will briefly introduce them here. However, before we continue, I would like to mention that Marx and Engels drew on Lewis Henry Morgan's work, Ancient Society, and his discredited theory of social evolution. Morgan proposed that human societies progress through 3 different stages: savagery, barbarism, and civilization. This framework is particularly reflected in Engels' work The Origin of the Family, Private Property, and the State. While I acknowledge that savagery and barbarism are pejorative terms and outdated by contemporary standards, I will use these terms to stay consistent with the source texts for now. Furthermore, this framework is Eurocentric, focusing heavily on the development of European societies and often overlooking the complexities and advancements of other civilizations. These societal stages, the base and superstructure, and the use of pejorative and outdated terms will be critiqued in the next part of the video. For now, let's continue with a brief introduction to these stages as outlined by historical materialism. The first stage was primitive communism, which includes the stages of savagery and barbarism. During savagery, human societies were organized into small, nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers. Social relations were very egalitarian, with communal ownership of resources and collective decision-making. There was no concept of private property, and survival depended on cooperative activities like hunting, fishing, and foraging. Next, we move into barbarism. This stage saw the development of basic agricultural practices and the domestication of animals, leading to more settled forms of living. Tribal communities formed, and while there was a slight increase in social stratification, communal ownership still predominated. The production surplus allowed for the development of specialized crafts and the beginning of trade. With the rise of a class society, the mode of production shifted to a slave society. Slavery became the dominant form of labor organization. Slave owners controlled the means of production, while slaves, considered property, had no personal freedoms. social relations were highly stratified, with a clear division between free citizens and slaves. The economy relied on the exploitation of slave labor, supported by the state through laws and military power. As managing vast slave populations became complex and external pressures increased, societies transitioned to feudalism. This system was defined by relationships between lords and vassals. Lords owned large estates and offered protection and land to vassals in exchange for military service and labor. Most of the population were peasants or serfs who worked the land and provided a portion of their produce to the lords. Unlike slaves, serfs had some personal rights but were bound to the land. Capitalism emerged from the ruins of feudalism, marked by the Industrial Revolution. This stage is defined by the dominance of the bourgeoisie, who own the means of production, and the proletariat, who sell their labor. The bourgeoisie seek to maximize profit, often at the expense of the proletariat's well-being, leading to significant social inequalities and periodic economic crises. The inherent tensions and contradictions within capitalism eventually lead to the next stage, socialism. Socialism represents a transitional phase where the working class seeks to overthrow the bourgeoisie and establish a society with collectively owned means of production. This stage aims to abolish private property in favor of communal ownership, reduce class distinctions, and ensure equitable distribution of wealth. It is seen as a necessary step towards achieving a fully communist society where economic production is planned to meet the needs of all citizens. Finally, we reach the stage of communism. Communism aims for a classless, stateless, and moneyless society where all means of production are communally owned. Without classes, there's no need for a state apparatus to enforce order. Everyone contributes to society according to their abilities and receives what they need for fulfilling lives. Economic production is collectively planned and managed, ensuring the well-being of all members and eliminating poverty, exploitation, and class struggle. Conclusion. Part 5. To recap, historical materialism provides a framework for analyzing the development of human society based on their material conditions. By understanding the economic base and its influence on the superstructure, we can gain insights into the dynamics of social change and the forces driving historical transformation. We have also briefly covered the different stages of social development and how these stages are shaped by the material conditions and class struggle within each stage. However, this societal stage of development had a Eurocentric bias, as it was primarily developed on European historical experiences. Other critiques of historical materialism include determinism, class reductionism, and its inability to fully account for non-economic factors. Despite these criticisms, Marxist theory offers valuable insights into societal development. This leads us to the next part of the video, the critique of historical materialism. Before we continue, we need to remember the historical context in which Marx and Engels wrote their works. This period was marked by the Industrial Revolution, political upheaval, and the height of imperialism. Scientific advancements were transforming the understanding of the natural world, with sociology, anthropology, and archaeology emerging as distinct disciplines. However, outdated ideas such as phrenology, social Darwinism, and unilinear evolution were also widely accepted at the time. These theories influenced contemporary thought and provided a framework for understanding societal development that Marx and Engels engaged with in their analysis of history and society. Their materialist conception of history reflected the era's belief in societal progress, incorporating these evolutionary ideas to explain the transition from primitive communism to feudalism and ultimately to capitalism and socialism. We should not dismiss Marxist theory simply because some ideas might be outdated. Instead, we should critique and revise their work. While Marxist theory has been critiqued, it remains a valuable analytical tool. Revising it helps apply historical materialism more effectively to our understanding of past societal development. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll subscribe to Historia Popularis, a People's History channel, and join us on this journey through history. As a deaf-blind creator, all of our content is AI voice generated, ensuring accessibility for everyone. To support our work and help us continue to bring these stories to life, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/historiapopularis. Your financial support is crucial as it enables us to cover the costs of research, production, and technology, allowing us to produce more content and improve the quality of our videos. Together, we can ensure that every voice is heard and every story is told. Remember, history belongs to all of us.